The first time she came into the yard, Grandpa thought it was a mistake. He was sitting on the back porch like he always did in the evenings, a quiet routine he'd followed for years, watching the trees, listening to the wind move through them, enjoying the kind of calm most people don't notice until it's gone. That's when he saw her, just walking across the grass, like it belonged to her. No hesitation, no looking around, no knocking. Just straight through the middle of his backyard, heading toward the side fence like it was a public walkway. At first, he didn't even stand up. He just watched, because sometimes people get turned around, sometimes they don't realize where they are, and jumping to conclusions doesn't help anyone. But when she reached the fence, unlatched the gate, and stepped out like she'd done it 100 times before, that's when he knew. This wasn't a mistake. The next morning, he walked the property line slowly, checking the fence, the gate, the latch. Everything was intact. Nothing broken, nothing forced. Which meant she hadn't needed to break in. She just let herself in. That bothered him more than anything. Not the act. The assumption behind it. So the second time it happened, he said something. Same evening, same path, same confidence. But this time, he was already standing. "Ma'am," he called out, calm but firm. She stopped, turned halfway, clearly annoyed at being interrupted more than surprised at being seen. "Yes," she said. "This is private property," he told her. She looked around like she was evaluating the statement, not accepting it. "I'm just passing through," she replied. "That's not how this works," he said. She sighed like he was the inconvenience. "It's faster this way," she said. That was her reasoning. Not permission, not confusion. Convenience. "I need you to use the road," he replied. She hesitated for a second, then shrugged slightly, turned, and walked out the same way she came. Not apologizing, not acknowledging anything beyond the fact that she'd been noticed. Grandpa didn't chase it further, didn't escalate, because at that point it seemed simple. He told her. She left. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. The third time, she didn't even slow down when she saw him, just walked right past like the conversation never happened. "Ma'am," he called again. This time she didn't stop. "I heard you," she said over her shoulder. "Then why are you still walking through my yard?" he asked. She turned just enough to respond, still moving. "Because it's not a big deal," she said. That was the moment it shifted. Because now it wasn't about misunderstanding, it was about dismissal. After that, it became routine. Every few days. Same path, same attitude. Sometimes alone, sometimes with someone else. Once, even on the phone, laughing while cutting straight across the middle of the property like it was a shortcut she'd claimed for herself. Grandpa tried everything that made sense first. He reinforced the gate, added a second latch, even put up a small sign near the entrance, clear and simple. Private property, no trespassing. It didn't matter, she ignored all of it. The HOA didn't help either. When he called, they gave him the same responses people give when they don't want to deal with something. "We'll look into it. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Try to resolve it neighbor to neighbor." He had already tried that, multiple times, and every time it ended the same way, with her walking through like nothing had changed. The last time he spoke to her before everything escalated, it wasn't angry, it wasn't loud, it was quiet, but firm. "You need to stop coming onto my property," he said. She looked at him, arms crossed, clearly done with the conversation before it even started. "Or what?" she asked. That question hung there for a second, not because he didn't have an answer, but because of how casually she asked it. Like there wouldn't be one. "I'll handle it," he said. She smirked slightly. "Good luck with that," she replied. Then she walked out again. Same way, same confidence, same assumption that nothing would change. That was her mistake. Because up until that point, Grandpa had been asking, explaining, warning. But after that, he stopped talking and started thinking, not emotionally, not impulsively, carefully, because he'd lived long enough to know something important. If someone ignores every reasonable boundary you set, you don't argue louder, you make the boundary stronger. The next few days, nothing happened. No trespassing, no shortcut, no sign of her at all. Which almost made it feel like maybe, finally, she had stopped. But Grandpa didn't believe that. Because behavior like that doesn't just disappear, it pauses. And sure enough, on the fourth day, she came back. Same path, same pace, same confidence. But this time, the yard wasn't the same, and neither was Grandpa. Grandpa didn't rush into anything. That's what people expect when they hear a story like this, that someone gets angry, reacts fast, does something reckless just to make a point. But that wasn't him. He'd spent his whole life fixing problems the right way, slow, deliberate, making sure whatever he did would hold up not just today, but later when someone inevitably asked questions. So before he touched the fence, he did something else first. He documented everything, dates, times, every single time she crossed the yard, every conversation, every warning he gave, every moment she ignored it. He wrote it down in a small notebook he kept in the kitchen, the kind of thing most people would overlook, but something that becomes very important when a simple issue turns into something bigger. Then he added cameras. Not obvious ones. Just enough to cover the path she used, the gate she kept opening, the exact stretch of fence she treated like it wasn't there for a reason. Clear angles, timestamps, nothing hidden from the truth. Because if this escalated, it wouldn't be about what he said, it would be about what actually happened. After that, he called the HOA again. Same number, same tone on the other end. "I've reported this multiple times," he said calmly. "She's still entering my property." "We'll remind residents about respecting boundaries," they replied. That wasn't action. That was avoidance. "She's ignoring direct warnings," he said. "Try to resolve it peacefully," they told him. He paused for a second, because that was exactly what he'd been doing, and it wasn't working. "Understood," he said. Then he hung up. That was the last time he asked them for help. The next step was the fence. Not replacing it. Not making it taller. Something different. Something simple, but effective. He installed a low-voltage electric fence line along the inside of the existing barrier, the kind used on farms, designed not to harm, not to injure, but to send a clear, sharp signal that stops you the moment you touch it. Legal, visible, marked. He didn't hide it. He added warning signs at regular intervals, bright enough to be seen from a distance, clear enough that no one could claim they didn't understand. Electric fence. No confusion, no trick. Just a boundary. When he finished, he tested it once, made sure it was functioning exactly the way it should. Not stronger, not weaker, just enough to do its job. Then he went back to his routine. Same porch, same chair, same quiet, and he waited. It didn't take long. The next afternoon, right around the same time she always showed up, she came walking down the side path again, phone in hand, barely looking up, moving with that same casual confidence like nothing in the world had changed. She didn't even notice the signs at first. Or if she did, she didn't care. She reached the gate, unlatched it, and stepped into the yard without hesitation. Grandpa didn't say anything, didn't stand up, didn't warn her again, because he already had, multiple times. She walked across the grass like she always did, heading toward the fence line, following that same path she had carved out for herself over weeks of ignoring every boundary he set. And then, it happened. Her hand reached out to steady herself against the fence as she stepped over a slightly uneven patch of ground. The moment her fingers made contact, she froze. Not dramatically, not thrown back, just a sharp, immediate reaction, like her body caught up to something her mind hadn't registered yet. She pulled her hand back instantly. "What the?" she muttered, looking at the fence, confused more than anything. Then she touched it again, this time more cautiously. And the reaction came again, stronger in her expression now. Recognition, shock, anger. "What is this?" she snapped, looking around. Grandpa stayed seated, calm, watching. "It's a boundary," he said. She turned toward him, clearly not expecting him to be there. "You electrified your fence?" she demanded. "Yes," he replied. "That's dangerous," she said immediately. "No," he said. "It's controlled." "You can't do that," she argued. "I can," he replied. Her expression shifted from shock to frustration. "You didn't warn anyone," she said. He pointed toward the fence. "The signs did." She looked at them now, really looked this time, and for the first time, she didn't have an immediate answer. "This is ridiculous," she said. "So is walking through someone else's yard like it's yours," he replied. That hit, because now the situation wasn't one-sided anymore. Now there was resistance, real resistance. "I'm reporting this," she said. "You should," he replied. No hesitation, no concern, just agreement. That threw her off more than anything else, because she expected pushback, argument, something she could use. Instead, he gave her nothing. She stood there for another second, then turned sharply and walked out, not cutting through the yard this time, not touching the fence again, heading back the long way around. Different path, different pace, different attitude. Grandpa watched her go, then leaned back in his chair again. Because the point wasn't to hurt her, it wasn't to win an argument, it was to make something clear. And for the first time, it was. But situations like this don't end in one moment. They build, because people like her don't just accept boundaries overnight. They push back, they escalate, they look for ways around them. And sure enough, the next step didn't come from her walking through the yard again. It came from something else, something louder, something official, because the following morning, a car pulled up in front of the house. Not hers, not the patrol, something different. And as the door opened, Grandpa already knew, this wasn't over yet. The car that pulled up the next morning wasn't subtle, clean, marked, the kind that makes people look twice even before the engine shuts off. It stopped right in front of the house, and for a moment, everything went quiet again, like the yard itself was waiting to see what would happen next. Grandpa didn't rush outside. He finished his coffee first, set the cup down, then stood up and walked out at the same steady pace he always used. The kind of calm that doesn't come from confidence, but from knowing exactly where you stand. Two people stepped out of the car, one in a uniform, the other holding a clipboard. Behind them, a second vehicle pulled up, this one familiar. HOA. And stepping out of that was her, arms crossed, expression already set, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "This is the property?" the officer asked as Grandpa approached. "It is," he replied. "We received a complaint about a hazardous installation," the man with the clipboard added. Grandpa nodded once. "I figured you might." The officer glanced toward the fence line, noticing the signs immediately, the placement, the spacing, the clarity. His eyes moved slowly along the boundary, taking in details most people would miss. "You installed an electric line?" he asked. "Yes," Grandpa said. "Mind if we take a look?" the officer asked. "Not at all," he replied. They walked toward the fence together, the HOA representatives hanging back just slightly, watching, waiting, like they expected this to go a certain way, like they'd already decided how it would end. The officer stopped a few feet from the fence, reading one of the signs, then another, then crouched slightly to examine the setup itself, careful not to touch anything. "Low voltage system?" he asked. "Correct," Grandpa said. "Standard agricultural unit." The man with the clipboard wrote something down. "Installed recently?" he asked. "Yes," Grandpa replied. "After multiple trespassing incidents," he added, before they could ask. The officer stood up again and looked at him. "You've had ongoing access issues?" he asked. Grandpa nodded. "Documented." That word mattered, because it meant something existed beyond conversation. "Do you have records?" the clipboard man asked. "I do," Grandpa said. He walked them back to the porch, retrieved the notebook, and handed it over, along with a small device. Footage. Clear. Time-stamped. Repeated entries. The same path, the same person, the same behavior. Over and over again. The officer watched quietly. Didn't interrupt. Didn't react. Just observed. Behind him, the HOA representatives shifted slightly, their confidence starting to thin as the reality of the situation unfolded in front of them. "This is excessive," she finally said, stepping forward. "All of this over a simple shortcut?" Grandpa didn't look at her. He looked at the officer. "Multiple verbal warnings," he said calmly. "Ignored." The officer nodded once, then turned slightly toward her. "You've been entering the property without permission?" he asked. She hesitated, just for a second, then tried to recover. "It wasn't like that," she said. "It's just a path everyone uses." Grandpa finally looked at her. "No," he said. "It isn't." Silence. Because now the situation wasn't about opinion anymore. It was about evidence. The clipboard man flipped through a few more notes, then looked up. "The installation appears compliant," he said. That was the shift. Small, but final. She frowned. "Compliant?" she repeated. "Yes," he replied. "Clear signage, proper voltage, enclosed within private boundary." "That doesn't make it safe," she argued. "It makes it legal," he answered. That landed harder than anything else, because now the argument she came with was gone. The officer stepped back slightly, looking between both sides. "Property owner has the right to secure their boundary," he said, "as long as it meets safety standards, which this appears to." She opened her mouth again, but nothing came out this time, because there was nothing left to argue. The HOA representative tried to step in. "We weren't aware the situation had escalated to this level," he said. Grandpa nodded once. "You were informed," he replied. That shut it down. Completely. Because now the timeline mattered, and the timeline didn't favor them. The officer handed the notebook back. "You've taken reasonable steps," he said. Then he looked at her again. "You'll need to respect the property boundary going forward." Not a suggestion. A direction. Clear, Simple. Final. She didn't respond, didn't argue, didn't push, because now she understood something she hadn't before. This wasn't a situation she could talk her way out of. This wasn't a shortcut anymore. This was a line, and she had crossed it too many times. The officials wrapped up quickly after that. No citations, no penalties. Because everything that needed to be addressed had been. As they walked back to their vehicles, the HOA representatives didn't linger, didn't try to continue the conversation, didn't make promises. They just left. Quietly. She stood there for a second longer, looking at the fence, at the signs, at the space she used to walk through without thinking. Then she turned and walked away. Not through the yard, not near the fence, but around, the long way, and that's how it stayed. Days passed, then weeks. No more footsteps across the grass. No more gate opening without permission. No more voices cutting through the quiet like it didn't matter. Just the wind again, the trees, the stillness. Grandpa went back to his routine. Same chair, same porch, same view. But now, undisturbed. Because in the end, it wasn't about the fence. It wasn't about the shock. It was about something simpler. Respect. And when someone refuses to give it, sometimes the only way to teach it is to make the boundary impossible to ignore. How did you like the story? Please like, share, and subscribe my YouTube channel for more HOA interesting stories.